A wicked doctor attacked a young nurse and fired her. But what happened the next morning shocked everyone. It was a calm evening in New York. The kind of evening where the sky glows a soft amber and the city hums with the quiet rhythm of routine. Inside St. Joseph's private clinic, one of the city's most reputable institutions, Nurse Emily slipped into her scrubs, ready for another long shift. She had done this countless times before. But tonight would be different. Tonight would change everything. Emily had built her name here. Known for her diligence, patience, and unshakable compassion, she was a heartbeat of the evening team. For 5 years, she served this clinic with pride. From comforting nervous patients to training new hires, Emily was the nurse everyone respected and trusted. But there was one patient who had slowly chipped away at her comfort, Mr. Kane. In his early 60s, wheelchair-bound, and without known relatives or visitors, he was often described as lonely but harmless. But Emily knew better. 4 weeks now, Mr. Kane had been making her feel uncomfortable, watching her too closely, calling her darling or pretty nurse, and always finding some reason to request her help when others were available. She had tolerated it, thinking perhaps she was overreacting or maybe it was harmless flirtation. After all, that's what people always say, don't they? He's just being friendly. He's an old man. Don't take it so seriously. But Emily knew the difference. There was nothing friendly about the way his eyes lingered or how his hand would brush against hers just a bit too long. Still, she had swallowed her discomfort for professionalism's sake. For peace. Until tonight. It was just past 7 p.m. The clinic hallways had quieted down and Emily was reviewing charts at the nurse's station when Mr. Kane wheeled himself over. Evening, pretty thing, he drawled, lips curling into a grin that made her skin crawl. She inhaled sharply but kept her tone even. Good evening, Mr. Kane. Do you need something? My blanket slipped again, he said. Mind helping me tuck it back? She nodded hesitantly and followed him into his room. She had helped countless patients with tasks like this, routine, clinical, ordinary. But with Mr. Kane, nothing ever felt routine. As she leaned in to help adjust the fabric, his hand shot out, quick, intentional, and touched her inappropriately. He smirked. That was the final straw. The fear, the violation, the weeks of silent discomfort, all of it erupted in a single instinctive motion. She slapped him hard across the face. The sharp crack echoed in the small room. For a split second, time froze. Mr. Kane stared at her, stunned. Then the smile faded from his lips, replaced by a sneer. Without a word, Emily turned and walked straight to Dr. Brown's office. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. She had to report this. She couldn't keep pretending it wasn't happening. Dr. Martin Brown, the clinic director, sat at his desk reviewing paperwork. He looked up, mildly irritated by her unannounced entrance. Dr. Brown, I need to speak with you. It's urgent. Go on, he said, pinned down. She explained every detail. How Mr. Kane had been inappropriate for weeks, how tonight he crossed the line and touched her again, and how she had reacted in defense. She expected concern, support, at the very least a promise to investigate. Instead, Dr. Brown's face hardened. You did what he asked. Coldly, she replied. I slapped him after he touched me. It wasn't the first time, and I. Before she could finish, he stood up and slapped her right across the face in front of 2 nurses who had just entered the hallway outside his office. Gasps followed. Dr. Brown's voice boomed louder than the slap. You put your hands on a patient? Are you out of your mind? Get out! Emily stood frozen, one hand on her burning cheek, eyes wide in disbelief. He assaulted me, she said, breathless. I don't want excuses, Dr. Brown barked. This clinic has a reputation. You just tarnished it. You're finished here. Her mouth went dry. You're firing me. In case I wasn't clear, he snapped. Leave now. The 2 nurses outside didn't dare move. One lowered her gaze. The other covered her mouth, stunned. Emily walked out without another word. Her world collapsed behind her. That night, the city outside was soaked in rain. Her small apartment felt colder than usual, emptier. She sat curled on the edge of her bed, still wearing her scrubs. The slap from both men, one physical, the other emotional, was still raw on her skin. She didn't cry. Not right away. She just sat there staring at the wall where her nursing license was proudly hung, now a mocking symbol of everything she'd lost in one cruel moment. Her phone buzzed with messages. A few co-workers asking if the rumor was true, some offering vague sympathy, but not one message from Dr. Brown. Not even a call to ask if she was okay. Emily had always thought Dr. Brown was stern. Yes, but just. He ran the clinic with iron discipline but often spoke about ethics and healing with conviction. She admired him, once thought of him as a mentor. But today, when it counted most, He silenced her. He chose reputation over truth, image over safety. And Mr. Kane? He was likely sitting comfortably in his room, spinning a false story about how the angry nurse hit him for no reason. That thought hurt more than the slap. Emily turned off her phone. The rain outside grew louder, matching the storm inside her. She lay down, unsure if she could ever walk back into a clinic again, unsure if she'd ever trust anyone in a white coat again. But as the storm raged, something quietly lit inside her. She had spoken up. She had defended herself. And while the world punished her for it now, truth had a way of resurfacing. She didn't know it yet, but across the clinic, a small red light blinked on a hidden camera. And soon, very soon, that light would shine on the truth everyone tried to bury. Rain lashed violently against the window panes, as if the heavens themselves were protesting what had taken place just hours earlier. Outside, the streets of New York glistened under the weight of the storm, cold, sharp, relentless. In a city so alive with people, laughter, and noise, it was astonishing how silent a small apartment could feel when everything inside had broken. Emily sat curled on her couch, knees pulled to her chest, a blanket draped over her shoulders but doing nothing to warm the icy ache that had burrowed into her bones. Her scrubs were still on, damp with rain, crumpled from the collapse of a day that had started with purpose and ended in disgrace. Above her, tilted at an awkward angle, hung her nursing certificate. The elegant lettering now felt like a cruel joke, a symbol of a life she'd built with care, now dismissed with a single slap. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table again. She ignored it. It had been buzzing on and off for the past hour. Colleagues, friends, people who had heard the news and were now offering fragments of sympathy, but none from Dr. Brown. Not a single word. Not a single message. Not even a call to ask if she had made it home. Of course not. She reached over slowly, unlocked the screen, and read a few of the messages. Jenna, I just heard. I can't believe he did that to you. Are you okay? Louise, lab tech. You didn't deserve that, Emily. If you need anything, I'm here. Rebecca, front desk. Some of us know what really happened. Please don't shut us out. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but no reply came. What could she say that didn't already sound exhausted? What could she possibly explain to people who had watched her get humiliated, who had turned away out of fear or confusion or silence? She set the phone back down and stared at the certificate again. It had taken her 6 years to become a nurse. Nights of studying anatomy, of barely sleeping during clinicals, of holding patients' hands as they slipped away, of being a rock for families drowning in grief. She had worked so hard to earn that frame on the wall. Now she was just a fired nurse with a story too painful to say aloud. Emily rose and walked toward the kitchen. The light above flickered, buzzing like it too had grown tired of the day. She poured a glass of water but didn't drink it. She just stood there, one hand on the counter, the other clutching the glass, as her mind circled the memory again and again. Mr. Kane's grin, his hand, the slap, her report, Dr. Brown's eyes, the other slap, and the words, "You're finished here." Her dignity, her career, swept aside like they meant nothing. And Mr. Kane, she imagined him now, probably reclining in his hospital bed, weaving lies about a nurse who went rogue, knowing she had no proof, no ally. But she had to believe the truth was stronger. She had to believe justice could come from darkness. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, the only sound breaking the silence of a night that felt endless. And somewhere, in a hidden corner of the clinic, a small security camera blinked red, silently recording every moment. Emily didn't know it yet, but soon, that camera would be the only witness who could speak louder than lies. "You said no," she replied. "You failed yourself," and just like that she stood. Marcus turned the screen off. Mr. Kane looked up at her, but the arrogance in his eyes was gone. All that remained now was fear, and it was his turn to carry it. Emily turned toward the door, her heart racing. There would be more to come, meetings, apologies, maybe even compensation, but that was for later. For now, one thing had been made crystal clear: truth doesn't need to shout, it only needs to be seen. The morning sun filtered through the slats of Emily's blinds, casting soft stripes of light across her living room wall. It was the first morning in days that didn't begin with dread. The air felt different, lighter, almost still, like the city itself was pausing to exhale. Emily sat curled on her sofa, a mug of now cold tea between her hands. She hadn't slept much the night before. The image of Mr. Kane's face when the footage played had replayed in her mind like a quiet symphony of justice, but even more vivid was the look in Dr. Brown's eyes. The moment realization replaced pride and guilt took its rightful place. It should have felt like victory, but Emily didn't feel victorious. She felt still, not broken, not entirely healed, but still. And sometimes stillness was enough to let something new begin. The email came at exactly 9:07 a.m. Her phone buzzed once. She picked it up with a casual expectation of more messages from former colleagues offering apologies or platitudes, but this notification was different. It didn't come with a name she recognized: subject, position, opportunity. At Haven Rest Medical Center from Haven Rest HR. Emily blinked uncertain if it was spam. She clicked Dear Miss Emily Mendes, I hope this message finds you well. My name is Dr. Angela Barrett, Director of Nursing Operations at Haven Crest Medical Center. Over the past 24 hours your story has quietly made its way through professional circles. We were deeply moved not only by what you endured but by the grace and integrity with which you handled it. We believe people like you don't just deserve support, they lead it. With that in mind, we would like to formally extend an offer for you to join our institution as head nurse of our acute care division. The role includes flexible scheduling, full benefits, leadership support, and a starting salary of $124,000 per year. We believe in protecting our staff as fiercely as we protect our patients. We would be honored to have someone with your strength and compassion helping us lead that mission. Please find the official offer letter and onboarding details attached. We look forward to hearing from you. With deep respect, Dr. Angela Barrett, Director of Nursing Operations, Haven Crest Medical Center. Emily stared at the screen. She didn't move. Her heart was pounding slowly. Carefully she reread the email. Then a third time she scrolled down to the PDF attachment and opened it. There it was in black and white, a job offer. Not just any job, a leadership role at one of the most respected hospitals in the city, a name she had heard during her clinical rotations in school, a place she had once dreamed of applying to but never did because back then she didn't believe she was ready. But here they were calling her, not because of a resume, not because of a referral, because of her story, her truth, her courage. The hands holding her phone began to tremble. Her lips parted slightly as the gravity of it hit her. It wasn't just an offer, it was redemption in the form of opportunity. It was proof that what she had endured, what she had fought for, not just in a moment of defiance, but in the silence that followed, meant something. She set the phone down and rose from the couch. She walked slowly toward the window and drew the curtains aside. The city pulsed below. Taxis zigzagged across intersections. People in suits clutched coffee cups and hurried past hot dog vendors and school buses. It was a regular Wednesday in New York, but not for her, not anymore. She closed her eyes and remembered what it felt like to walk out of St. Joseph's. Bruised in pride, cheeks stinging, reputation questioned. She remembered the hush of the staff who watched her go, the cruel quiet of a system more concerned with protecting its own image than its people. And now, just 3 days later, someone had looked at her and seen not a problem, not a liability, but a leader. Emily turned and looked at her certificate again, still crooked on the wall, but this time it didn't mock her. It reminded her not of what she'd lost, but of everything she had refused to surrender: her dignity, her voice, her value. She took a deep breath and walked back to the table. She opened the email once more, her hand hovering over the screen. The cursor blinked beside the word reply, and for a moment the noise of the world faded. Then she began typing. Dear Dr. Barrett, thank you for reaching out to me with such sincerity and warmth. I am deeply honored by your offer and grateful for the opportunity to work with an institution that values integrity and compassion, not just in theory but in action. Please consider this my official acceptance. I look forward to joining the Haven Crest team and contributing to a workplace that understands that caring for caregivers is as vital as caring for patients. With heartfelt appreciation, Emily Mendes, RN. She had sent. It was done. The moment the email left her outbox, a subtle unfamiliar feeling settled in her chest. Hope, not the desperate kind, not the sort that clings in the dark, but the kind that grows quietly like sunlight stretching across a windowsill. In the early hours of daybreak, she looked around her apartment. Everything was the same. The tea was still cold, the paint still slightly peeling in the corner, the certificate still crooked, but something inside her had shifted. This was no longer a place she retreated to. This was a place she would rise from. She walked into her bedroom and opened her closet, pulled out the box she hadn't touched in months, her best white coat still neatly pressed with her name embroidered above the heart. She placed it gently on the bed. A new chapter was no longer an idea. It was waiting for her. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing the polished hallway of Haven Crest Medical Center. Everything gleamed. The walls were lined with modern art, the lights above diffused and warm, and the subtle scent of eucalyptus from the wellness wing lingered in the air. But what caught Emily's attention wasn't the aesthetics, it was the way she felt present, whole, and finally home. She stepped forward, her shoes clicking gently against the linoleum floor. Her scrubs were freshly pressed, a pale navy that somehow made her feel taller. The badge clipped to her chest now read something new: Emily Mendes, RN, Head Nurse, Acute Care Division. The words were still sinking in. A few weeks ago she had sat alone in a rain-soaked apartment, stripped of her dignity, fired in public disgrace. Today she walked into a new hospital where her story hadn't been erased, it had been honored. As she moved past the welcome desk, a young receptionist stood up, smiling. Good morning, Nurse Mendes, we're so glad to have you here. Emily smiled back, genuine and warm. Glad to be here. The words felt small compared to what was stirring inside her. As she turned the corner toward the acute care unit, she passed a familiar sight, something every hospital had but few ever stopped to look at: a bulletin board. But this one was different. On it were printed sheets neatly framed detailing Haven Crest's new workplace harassment policy, clear language, simple steps, anonymous reporting lines, quarterly staff wellness sessions. There was a small note in the corner that read: Mode after the Mendes reform guidelines. Effective immediately. Emily froze for a moment, her breath catching in her throat. She hadn't asked for this, she hadn't even known it was being implemented, but someone had. Listen, someone had cared enough to immortalize what had once been her pain into something others could now lean on. For protection she swallowed hard, blinked back emotion, and continued walking. In the weeks since she had accepted the offer, Emily had poured herself into preparation, new policies to review, teams to get to know, a new rhythm. To learn Haven Crest wasn't just a hospital, it was a culture of intention. The administration had emphasized from the start, we want our leaders to lead with empathy, not just efficiency, and that was something Emily understood deeply. She arrived at her unit just as morning rounds were beginning. A nurse named Kesha waved her over. Emily, sorry, Nurse Mendes, you're early. Emily grinned. Old habits. Besides, I like to start my day knowing how everyone's doing. Anyone call out? Just one pull from night shift, but we're covering and new interns are shadowing today. Perfect. Emily said, I'll introduce myself after handoff. As she turned to enter her office, she noticed 2 interns lingering by the corner, fidgeting with their clipboards. They looked barely out of school, nervous, eager, eyes wide with expectation. Emily approached. You two must be our shadows today, she said warmly. They nodded quickly. I'm Emily, she said, offering her hand. Some folks call me head nurse, but honestly just nurse. Emily is fine. If you get lost, I'm your map. If you mess up, I'm your parachute. And if someone makes you feel unsafe, I'm your voice until you find yours. They looked stunned, then smiled, visibly relaxing. I think we're going to learn a lot from you, one of them murmured. Emily smiled. I hope so, because that was the plan, not just to supervise, not just to enforce, but to rebuild trust where systems had once let it rot. Meanwhile, across town, the lights inside St. Joseph's Clinic flickered on an awkward silence. The place hadn't changed much on the outside, same marbled floors, same fern plants by the entryway, same golden letters above the front desk, but within those walls something had begun to shift. In the weeks following the security footage revelation, a quiet reckoning had taken place. Staff whispered less and spoke more. Anonymous tip lines had been implemented, staff workshops on consent, emotional safety, and communication had been scheduled. And Dr. Brown, he moved differently now, not slower but quieter, less sure of himself. The man who once walked the halls with unshakable confidence now nodded more, listened longer, and interrupted less. His office, once reserved for executive meetings and business talk, had been opened up for weekly staff listening sessions. It was a start, an awkward one, but a start nonetheless. On his desk lay a single framed photo of the hospital, Emily's hospital, taken months ago. When he looked at it, he saw more than a building. He saw the lives inside it, lives he was now determined to protect differently, to create an environment where truth didn't need a megaphone, where no one had to fight alone. This was no longer a story about one nurse and one incident. It was a story about what could happen when people refused to accept brokenness as inevitable. And as Emily left the hospital that evening, stepping into the cool dusk sky, she carried something new with her. Not just a job offer, not just a victory, but a promise that change was possible even when the system seemed too big and too broken to fix. It was possible if people dared to stand up to their fears and use their voices in unison. Emily smiled as the city lights twinkled around her. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time she felt ready to walk it.